things the wrong way. I am human and I need to be loved, just like everybody else does. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lord Alfred Hayes, and welcome to this very special Coliseum video exclusive, Lord Alfred's early Valentine's Day party. Many guests will be joining me today to talk about love, to talk about happiness, to talk about marriage. But first I'd like to introduce probably the most romantic man that I've ever known. He's not much of a dancer, but he does write a very mean sonnet. I'm talking about none other than my dear friend. Welcome him to the show, Salvatore Bellomo.
Hey, Lord Alfred, it's good to be back. I've been loving the show. I've been loving being your guest on here. Every time I come on, old Mama Bellomo comes in. She'll tell me to come over to the house. She makes me a nice big pasta dinner, and we sit down and we listen to the repeat together, and she's just as happy as she can be. And, you know, she's in her last legs now. She's in her last years. So I try to keep her happy when I can. I'm here again, and people keep asking me, you know, Sal, what kind of stories have you got? What kind of stories can you tell us about the old golden days of pre-Hulkamania or in around the Hulkamania period? And I got one for you today. This is one that not a lot of people know, but those of us that was there can tell you. This is how it went down. It was around the time that a young man, I think it was around 1985, there was a young man named King Kong Bundy. He was coming into WWE. They'd set up his contract, but he hadn't debuted yet. Now, the Bundy that they hired was not the Bundy that you saw. Back in those days, King Kong Bundy, as he was called, he was a very fit young man. He didn't just have a six-pack. The fella had an eight-pack, maybe a 10-pack. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to abdominal muscles, but it was a pack. He had a pack of something. A very lean fella, lots of muscles. And then he had this big head of red curly hair, like long shoulder-length ringlets. He was like the prettiest girl you ever saw, except he was a fella. And, you know, Vince takes one look at him and he goes, this guy, maybe he's going to be the next big thing. But, of course, Vinny had sunk so much money into Hulk Hogan at that time that he started to second-guess it. And he goes, God damn it. This Bundy's going to overshow Hogan. Now, remember, Hogan still had a bit of hair then, but it was not long after that it looked like it had been chewed down to a nub by a rat. Vinny starts getting worried. Hogan starts getting worried. There's all kinds of stuff going on backstage. And basically what they do is this. Hulk convinces Vinny to replace Bundy's shampoo with some of that hair remover, that neat stuff that ladies use on their legs. And Vinny goes ahead with it, thinking it's not too bad of an idea. All the hair falls out on Bundy's head. Bundy's just crushed. This guy, he had made all his money on his looks. He was coming in to be like the number one baby face. Suddenly, he's bald as can be. He even dripped down, took out his eyebrows. Guy's got no hair on his face at all. Looks like some kind of a grub wearing clothes. So he starts freaking out, and Vinny's like, well, you know, it's okay. We'll just put you out like this anyway. So Vinny then starts to think, well, the physique's going to be a problem, too, because Hogan, he was a big guy, but he was still kind of puffy, right? And Bundy back then looks like, well, like what Rick Rude did a few years later. So Vinny starts going, yeah, don't worry about the hair, Bundy, you'll be fine. And he starts leaving, like, brownies and cakes and pies and all kinds of stuff in his dressing room. And Bundy's, he got stress eating, right? Because he's freaking out. He's putting on, like, about 180 pounds in about 2.5 weeks. No lie. 180 pounds in 2.5 weeks. Suddenly, he's this big blob of a fella with no hair, and Hogan's feeling pretty good at the time, too, because he's going, wow, this guy, he's looking like a freak. He's not going to take my place no more. So Vinny goes, well, you know, I got this big, fat, bald guy. I think the best gimmick for him is that I make him a giant baby. I go, Vinny, what are you, some kind of ding-dong? Don't put him in a goddamn diaper. So I talk him into putting him in the singlet. Poor old Bundy goes out there, plays the fat man against Hogan's big buff dude. But if it hadn't been for Vinny and Hulk and all their insecurities backstage, I think that it could have been Bundymania all the way. Big, beautiful Bundy with his long red hair. That's the way it should have been. It's not the way it went down. I had no hand in it, though. Anyway, Lord Alfred, there's a story from backstage. I hope people can kind of look at that and take some kind of parable from it moving forward. Let people be who they are.
That was Salvatore Bellomo. Shotgun Shan, Luke Force, over to you.
Back on the airwaves, you're listening to us on the Spreaker Web Radio Network and at our website at WrestlingAudioRevolution.com. And we're getting back into the regular schedule. You heard my man, Shan the Commissioner Cunningham, last week. We've returned with War Weekly. And this week, the alternative, Shotgun Shan, Vintage Update. How are you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm good, and I'm glad to be here again. It doesn't seem like we do these quite nearly enough, although we are getting back on our regular schedule. It just seems like the news is starting to come fast and furious now, so we're not going to run out of stuff to talk about.
So, Shan, I really want to take a few minutes right now to get your thoughts on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Sean and I maybe had a bit of a different opinion on this one, and I want to know where you stand regarding the pay-per-view and the Rumble match itself, most in particular.
Well, I mean, it was a mixed bag like it is usually. I mean, say overall, if I was to sit down and compare my reaction to this year's Rumble as compared to the past two, I would have a more favorable reaction to this year. There was good and bad in it. I mean, I think the opener with Owens and Ambrose was extraordinary and certainly an early candidate. I mean, we're only in January, but I wouldn't be surprised if that match ends up when they're picking match of the year at the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised that match was there. And a lot of other good things on the show, too. I don't think there was one match on there that I hated or that I even really lost interest in. I think that they did a decent job. The Rumble itself, predictable ending. I think we all knew it was either going to be Triple H or it was going to be Roman. Typical ending in that Triple H won. I don't think that the handling of Roman Reigns in that show was predictable. I don't think he was booked strongly. I don't think that he was booked. It makes me wonder, really, if they are actually trying to put Roman over as the next big thing. And what I'm talking about specifically is when he gets dragged out of the ring by the League of Nations, gets the beatdown, and then hobbles off to the back. And I mean, I realized that he hadn't been thrown over the top, but the fact that he was just going along with being led to the back by the doctors made it look as though he'd been eliminated. And if he wasn't eliminated, then he was taking a break. And I think that made him look weak in the eyes of the crowd, who were already turning on him anyway. Let's face it. Anytime someone came in that they liked better than Roman, the crowd was quick to turn. And that's a shame for Roman. But I think he took a real hit with the way that they pulled him out of that match partway through. I mean, he could have fought his way to the back. He could have been dragged away. Instead, he just kind of hobbled off and then hobbled back in later. And for me, I think that took whatever wind was left in Roman's sails right out. Now they've booked him in a triple threat at Fastlane against the two top baby faces in the company. I wouldn't want to be Roman Reigns right now. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a whole other story. Regarding the triple threat match, I'm still very confused, but I guess I'm just not supposed to think about it. Why is Stephanie McMahon and Hunter and the McMahon family, after all of that work to make sure Roman Reigns doesn't have the title, the very next night you're booking a match where you give Roman Reigns a chance at going for the title? And on top of that, you put Dean Ambrose in there, who we all know is a complete psychotic, and sure, Triple H threw him out at the end of that, and that was ridiculous. Not the fact that he did it. Not the fact that he threw out Roman. The way that whole thing played out made no sense whatsoever in terms of Triple H's spot in the company. Because he's trying to play the weaselly authority that's going to screw everybody. But it really comes down to, why do you even need to screw anybody, Hunter? You came in there, you threw out Roman Reigns like a sack of shit, and then you threw out Dean Ambrose like a sack of shit. You came in there looking more jacked than anybody in the ring. You weren't the little weasel. You were Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
What do you think of that statement?
Lesnar light. Let's put it that way.
Lesnar light, but just in terms of the way they booked him. Sure, he was number 30. Yeah. Sure, there were obstacles. But like you say, Roman got the beat down by the League of Nations, but it wasn't that bad of a beat down if he can walk to the back.
And if you can walk, I mean, the standard always is that if you can walk, you don't walk towards the dressing room. If you can walk, you fight your way back into the ring to either get even with someone or to, in this case, the match was still going on. I think it was really, they took the wind out of him. It was vanity booking. And as much as they may say, oh, we're trying to get Roman over, I don't think that that's what was shown on screen. And
you know what else was just awful about all that? And the funny thing is, I actually really liked the match. I enjoyed myself for this Rumble. I really did. And I think it has to do with the fact that there was just so many guys that weren't here last year on the main roster, or at least weren't in the Rumble match itself. Everybody from Sammy, Owens, obviously AJ Styles, but we'll talk about him in just a second. But one of the really big problems with the perception of that match and the way things played out was the announcers. And I know a lot of people, and you yourself, Shan, are thinking, well, yeah, they suck, and they've always sucked. But it was more than that. Hunter coming in, they really didn't play up at all that Ambrose had already fought in this, killer match in the beginning and basically thrashed himself, and now he's come back. And, they just kind of treated it like, well, Hunter's in there and he's throwing out Ambrose. With Roman, they didn't really communicate what the hell was going on as to why he had to walk to the back.
Exactly.
If he's got to walk to the back because he's being forced to have medical attention, that as stupid as that is, as ridiculous as that is, you at least got to explain it. And they didn't. There was no explanation. And again, they're so overproduced that I can't blame the announcers. I'm going to have to blame who was in the headset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at if they're trying to emulate top guys from the past. Show me a top guy that voluntarily would walk away from the Royal Rumble because the doctors, air quotes, told him to.
And then show me the lead announcer that's not going to at least explain what the hell is going on.
At least explain it, And then I just couldn't understand it. I've not been able to understand Roman's booking for so long. It's again, they've put so many resources into positioning him in some ways, but then in other ways, simple, easy to do things they've just dropped the ball on that I think have hurt him more. I really think that this Rumble loss hurt him more than the Rumble victory last year in a lot of ways, because it showed him to be kind of weak. And to me, and again, like he held his own. He was in there until the end with Ambrose, who, as you said, got the living crap beaten out of him. That first match was savage. It was vicious.
Stole the show.
Stole the show, yeah, and that's saying something at a Rumble. And again, as you said, good Rumble. Didn't like the last minute of it, or 2 minutes of it, but really good Rumble overall. Tons of exciting moments in it. But it really wasn't. You're right. They really should have made a huge deal out of Ambrose coming in. I still can't figure out how they're positioning Ambrose either. Do they know what they have with him and they're holding on the trigger, or do they know that they could have something with him, but he's not who they want, and they're going to do the old usual, we'll keep you on the back burner forever thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, this guy needs you. When I talk about Roman, he needs you. He needs you to help him. He needs you to protect him. And they did everything but. Yes, he's in there as long as he was, but he took a long break in the middle. And people really didn't know, whether you're talking about the live crowd or whether you're talking about people at home, why he took a big break, what was going on. As far as we know, he just wanted to do the Jimmy Hart thing and hide under the ring.
Exactly. Like, you can remember the time when Austin and McMahon fought all over the building. Well, there was a reason for them not being in the ring for so long. And I can't remember if they've done it with other people as well, but I feel like they have. But there was always a reason. But this just wimpily being kind of like, okay, the doctor says I have to go because I got splashed on the announce table.
Right. And McMahon and Austin thing. And I give you credit because I know that era of wrestling is not one of your favorites, especially of WWE.
Yeah.
But, they followed it with the cameras. The announcers were talking about it. You knew exactly what was going on. There was no following this with the cameras.
Yeah.
He just disappeared for a long time. I think a lot of people really did start to think maybe he's gone. But then
I would have, if I'd been watching it live, I would have thought, and I didn't. I watched it in the morning. But if I'd been watching it live, I honestly would have thought, Roman was eliminated, but the announcers have missed it.
He's even more hated when he comes back. That's supposed to be his big moment, his big Superman, I'm not going to quit. I'm coming back. I'm rising from the dead. It was just, you couldn't have had a more of a backfire reaction for that. And, you had speculated on Super Show, the last one we did, that if Hunter wins, isn't there a fear that there will be this, backlash about the management, legit management, putting the title on themselves? I think you saw that sure didn't happen. The crowd cheered wildly when he threw out Roman Reigns, and then actually cheered wildly when he threw out Dean Ambrose. It was almost like anybody but Roman, and we're happy. Again, you also, I guess, have to factor in where they were, and the fact that Triple H is the godfather of NXT. Maybe that doesn't play into it, but with that crowd, I guess in some ways it does. I felt more than anything that it was just, thank God Roman didn't win.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
Like Hunter put the belt on himself in 2016, or whoever booked, Vince, whatever. But same shit. And the crowd cheered like crazy. That really goes to show how much they didn't want Roman.
I know, and yet it sounds like they're still going ahead. I don't know.
Oh man, God bless him. But AJ Styles, I thought that was excellent. The way that he came in at number 3.
Great debut. Yeah, because, you were sitting there, you would have been going through I wonder, is he, isn't he? And the longer it went on, it might have been, you've been speculating more, but at this point, it was such a surprise to have him come in at 3, because I had no idea if he was even going to be there.
that they'd bring him in that early in the match. So that was really the only way they could have surprised me with AJ, unless they brought him in at number 2. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But and announced him. But I still think he got a fantastic reaction, put on a great show. I love that Owens was the guy who put him out finally, just because I'd love to see that feud. And hopefully they'll revisit it. But I think everything was done well with AJ. He made a great showing for himself.
Yeah, you can't complain much. I mean, I said on War Weekly last week that I thought they could have even gone further with it and have him eliminate more than 2 guys. You know, you could have even gone further with the big impressive showing. But, you know, what they did, you really can't complain about it. And the fact that he made his debut in there with nobody in the ring but Roman, I thought was pretty cool and looked good. And the crowd was solidly behind him.
That's another weird thing. If you know that this guy could get a crazy great reaction, why would you want to contrast him with Roman?
I think they were very much surprised by that reaction.
Really?
Yes. And not to say that there weren't a million people in that locker room or agents or people very high up that were completely predicting it. I don't think that the Hunters and, you know, the McMahons and the Stephanies were predicting that reaction. In fact, I can almost guarantee they weren't. And his merch sold out that night. So he's already been selling really big merch numbers, especially for a guy that's just debuted. The commentators, like I said, they're super overproduced. If there's something that they have to say, they're going to say it. And otherwise, if they're saying something that they don't like, you know, they're going to have yelling in their ears and tell to shut up. I was very, very surprised and impressed with the way that the commentators were handling AJ.
Yeah.
Because it was none of this, at least for the first week and a half. And it's still not with the commentators. Miz did it this week, but like in terms of the commentators, none of that indie darling shit.
Yeah.
None of that, oh, he's in the big, well, I guess there was a bit of that in the big time stuff. But for the most part, it was this guy is, you know, a former IWGP champion. As I said on last week's show, you know, JBL, very quick to point out, he's former IWGP champion, the same as Brock Lesnar. I thought, damn, that's the best way to put it to a casual fan that doesn't know. This guy is in that elite class, right there with Brock Lesnar. The crowd certainly knew who he was. He was the most popular guy in the match, and was very impressed, again, with the way that the commentators have handled him like international superstar, not indie darling, you know, all that bullshit. So,
well, like when you said that nobody in management expected this kind of a reaction. Now, do you think that was just ignorance on their part, or do you think their head's so far in the sand that they just don't think that a guy from outside of WWE is going to get over that big?
I mean, I'm sure they thought he would get over. I'm sure that they thought it would be a nice little surprise. I don't think they just thought it would be, you know, a pin drop or that he'd be treated like, you know, just anybody else. But I mean, at the same time, I think it was much bigger than they had anticipated. And the merchandise thing, I think, was much bigger than they had anticipated. You know, I mean, they're going all out with the guy so far. And it's been really amazing seeing him on Monday Night Raw. And the whole transition, you know, the fact that he clearly is a fish out of water. Nonetheless, I mean, in the WWE system, it's not just go out there and be AJ Styles and wrestle as good as you can and steal the show. You know, you're wrestling under a lot of do's and don'ts, very strict guidelines. And so far, so good with AJ. It's been kind of almost fun to watch him, you know, see the nerves there again and to see him sort of, okay, now I've got to learn this system. And going into the next night, after Hunter won the belt, they announced that there would be this triple threat match. 3 baby faces. One of them broke your husband's arm. Why you want to give him a shot at the title, I don't know. Seriously, think about this. Like, you know, if you're trying to control this title, then what's the point of booking this match?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, why don't you book the League of Nations versus the League of Nations versus the League of Nations?
Yeah, exactly. Or somebody that's going to be a cakewalk for you. Like,
yeah.
You don't want to put in Ambrose. I mean, forget Reigns, but you don't want to put in Ambrose or Lesnar for the very fact that these two guys are completely uncontrollable, and you could end up having to fight them at WrestleMania. So. And
Roman, of course, being the most ridiculous of them all. Mm-hmm. Because you screw him out of the title, you'd think you'd want to be keeping him as far away as possible, but oh no, we want to just book him in a match. So, again, there was ways, if you had to do that match, there were ways to go about it, where they maybe were put in qualifying matches, where they overcame the odds. There's all kinds of ways you could have done it, rather than just have Steph come out and say, well, this is the match for Fastlane, and one of these guys will face my husband. It's like, Steph, do you really think, like, if Ambrose is the least threatening, do you really think that, like, he's gonna win that match? You know, like it's a sure thing if I put these 3 guys and Ambrose will win, and then it'll be, you know, maybe an easy match for my husband. No. Chances are it'll be Lesnar or Reigns. Why do you want to fight those guys?
No, but this is where, the foolishness of the authority and all the little plot holes that it brings with it kind of comes to a head now that he's champion as well. Now nothing makes any sense. You know what I mean? Because really, it should just be a given now, because he's a corrupt dude, that he'll never lose the title. He'll hold it for as long as he wants. He doesn't have to fight anybody. Doesn't have to have any big matches. Blah blah blah. And so yeah, they're just booking against kind of common sense now.
And now it's just really thrown together, and I've been pretty underwhelmed with that. But regarding the match, I guess the one thing you could say, and maybe the one way it ends up making sense, is that they've got in Ambrose's ear. What do you think's going on with this triple threat?
I don't know. I mean, they've been teasing this Roman and Ambrose thing for so long that I don't really believe it anymore. It certainly should happen, but if it does happen, then it needs to be Reigns and Ambrose at WrestleMania, and then put Brock in against Triple H. But then you end up with Brock as champion again, and we've seen what happens there. Not, to downplay his title reign, but you just don't need a champion that's never on TV. So I don't know what you do there. And with the kind of reaction that Roman gets compared to the kind of reaction that Ambrose gets, I'm not sure it helps Roman if Ambrose turns heel. I think it probably helps Ambrose more. I think at this point, with the shaky reception that Roman gets over and over and over again, the one way to fix it is to turn him heel and use it as his incentive. But when they keep fighting against it, it just makes him look weaker and weaker. And I have a feeling if Ambrose turns heel, the fans are going to go with him. So I don't know.
I still feel like that's the program after Mania, though, because what else does he have? Let's say that it's just going to be what they have planned, and that's Roman Reigns. And as far as even this week, that's what I'm hearing is still the plan for WrestleMania. There's a lot of question marks on a couple things, like Undertaker's opponent, which is still being rumored to be Braun Strowman. But it at least seems like there's a lot of people around Vince trying to talk him out of it and saying this is a bad idea. It looks like Vince is really hell-bent on Braun Strowman, and there seems to be some talk that he's actually more capable than what you're seeing on TV, and he's been told to hold back.
That doesn't even sound good, even if he's a little bit better than what we think he is. I don't want to be awful, and I don't want to put down Braun, because he got thrown into this before he was ready.
Sure.
But I just don't know that you want a guy that's that big and that green in against a guy that, no offense to Undertaker again, but is in the twilight of his career.
Oh, it's the wrong opponent for Undertaker. You're not offending me in any way by saying that.
I'm just saying, first of all, you could get a real stinker of a match. Second of all, you could get a terrible injury to a dude that's, needs to kind of coast through the next little bit of his career and end it on a high note. If anybody deserves to end on a high note, it's Taker. And I've been critical about this, and I take a lot of flack from it from our listeners, but I really think Taker needs to get out now, or really, really soon, because we've seen too many guys get hurt to the point where they can't perform properly. And when you're that big and you're carrying that much weight on that frame and you're that age, you gotta count every match that it could be your last. And who knows? I would hate for his last match to be against Braun Strowman. No offense to Braun.
And you really don't get a better scenario than Texas, and also the fact that it's going to be the biggest WrestleMania crowd of all time, hopefully, in that venue. So, yeah, is that really the way you want to go out? And is there a better scenario or a better place and time to go out than right now this year? I don't see it. I agree with you 100%. And Braun is not the guy to end your run with. As far as Roman and Hunter, no, that one seems to be solidified. So let's assume that Roman wins this match. I just feel like they're going to do something in this match, and it's a pretty simple scenario to book, where Brock ends up maybe giving Dean the F5. Okay? And then the Wyatts come and somehow pull Brock out of the match and beat up Brock and take him out. And then you have Dean laying, and you have Roman like, what do I do? What do I do? Should I pin him? And then he pins him. And then that's going to start the whole jealousy angle. That's going to start the whole, bitterness on the part of Dean Ambrose. And then that's your post-WrestleMania program, because what else do you have? We can say Bray, but after that, what? And even that, is that going to be something that's a real big deal, even with the Lesnar match?
Well, I think if Roman pins Ambrose, the audience is the crowd's going to crap on him.
That's true, but they crap on everything anyway. Clearly, at that Rumble booking and everything we just talked about, they're not really super concerned about that. Because if they were, there's no way anybody would book what they did at the Rumble. There's no way, if you were concerned and you were trying to help the guy, that would happen. I just don't feel like they're that incompetent, but maybe they are. I don't understand the Roman Reigns thing. It's a total question mark. That seems to be the most logical way to book that match. If not that, then let's just assume Roman goes over clean on, I don't know, Lesnar. I just don't see that. That's not going to happen. Let's be honest. That's not going to happen. Especially because they probably want to protect that program for down the road. So I just feel like there's only one guy that can take the pin in this match. Now back to AJ just for a second. The next night on Raw, he did make his Raw debut in a match that a lot of fans, I thought, gave unnecessary flack to. As far as I know, they'd never even met each other until that day. I guess the day before the Rumble. But they had never worked with each other before that. And this was their first match, their first feeler match, AJ's first television match, and that's a whole other story in terms of the timing and the commercial break and all that stuff that you have to sort of incorporate into what is already a somewhat short match. So what did you think of that one? Because I had absolutely no problems with it, and I was a little surprised by some of the reaction, and I think Jericho was too, because he went online and said, relax, it's our first match together, and he enjoyed it.
I thought it was solid. I don't know what you'd expect out of AJ's first, his debut. I mean, this is not, if it was his pay-per-view debut, I'd go, well, yeah, there should have maybe been a bit more to it. But even then, I mean, it was a solid match. It was as solid as it's going to get. I'm not sure. I think that's just people being overcritical.
I thought that Jericho putting him over was good, and it definitely seemed to leave something open there at the end for another match, and hopefully a series of matches down the road. Do you think that may actually be the program for Fastlane?
I guess it could be, yeah. I mean,
Jericho this week, he did, sorry, just to give you this in context, is the fact that Jericho this week on Raw did say he would be, watching SmackDown to see AJ wrestle Miz and stuff like that. It seemed like they were keeping that going in some way, and I haven't seen SmackDown yet. It seemed on Raw that they were hinting at least that Jericho's got an interest in AJ still.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that you'll be disappointed in that match, and it would certainly be a great guy for AJ to work with as he kind of adapts to the style. I just don't know how committed Jericho is. Is Jericho, what's Jericho's timetable on this? Well,
I'm pretty sure he's going to be at WrestleMania.
Okay, well then,
he'll be wrestling at WrestleMania.
I won't complain if that ends up being AJ's match at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. I guess my question is, at Fastlane, is that going to be AJ's match?
Fastlane.
I mean, it could be both. It could be both. I'm not sure.
In fact, it doesn't give you an awful lot of time to get a new opponent for WrestleMania. So if you're going to do it at Fastlane and then have it be inconclusive and carry it over to WrestleMania, yeah, that's great. I'd be fine with either. I don't see any problem with it. Jericho's a very competent and capable guy and really good at protecting guys and kind of helping them. So I think that it would be great. I think that the match itself would probably be strong.
He hasn't been over like he has in past returns. And you do another match at Fastlane where it's all like sportsmen, like, okay, you got me once there, youngster, but this time I got your number. And then he loses again. And then he snaps. The handshake again at the end and kicks him in the balls. Yeah. And that's, Jericho turns heel on AJ. And then you do the match at WrestleMania and he puts over AJ again. That's the way I would do it. I don't think Jericho will be hurt by that. Jericho really seems to be into AJ Styles and the idea of working with him. And I think it just has to do with the fact that it's another A-list wrestler, world-class wrestler that he can get in the ring with, He's pretty much said he didn't want to come back in any real capacity unless he had somebody to work with and something that he could get excited about. And I think AJ Styles is that guy. From everything you hear from Jericho, he seems to feel that way too. So I feel like that could be a program that goes until Mania. Otherwise, I don't know. The Kevin Owens thing, it certainly seemed to be set up at Rumble, but just those two in a singles match, I don't know. I don't know if it's enough time to really get that thing as hot as it should for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could, though, really, because they already have a beef coming out of the Rumble. You could have AJ beat Owens at I think AJ needs to win at Fastlane. I don't think he can lose at Fastlane no matter who he fights. But you really could build a simmering feud out of that. The problem is that you got two guys that I think need to be protected right now and need to look hot going into WrestleMania. So maybe it's not the best choice.
Now, we must say best wishes to the legendary Bret the Hitman Hart, as well as his brother Smith Hart, who actually was diagnosed with prostate cancer 10 days before Bret. So it's been some hard times for the Harts. So get well, brother. Hopefully everything goes well. And to your brother Smith as well. Much respect to Bret Hart, Smith Hart, and the Hart family. Also, we want to give our best wishes to Blackjack Mulligan, the grandfather of Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, the father of Mike Rotunda, a.k.a. Michael Wall Street, IRS. The list goes on, which does explain the absence of Bray and Bo on Raw this past week. And on the topic of Bray, Shan, I mean, assuming that the Lesnar match is what we're getting for WrestleMania, Give me a time and temp on how you feel regarding this program.
There've been kind of feedback that's gone either way on this, but I really think that this kind of program is the right program for Brock. Brock had kind of hit that level very quickly, actually, since his kind of return. He hit that point where he was kind of where Andre was, at that height of his career, where you really didn't believe anyone could beat him. And there was no real credible opponents for him. Having the Wyatts come in and beat him down a few weeks ago, I think it was back before the Rumble, beat him down and toss him around just simply by using the numbers game, kind of humanized Brock again. And I think you need that sometimes. If you're just too unbeatable, then people aren't going to watch your matches with the same kind of anticipation that they'll watch when you're in a competitive match. As far as, Bray being a competitive challenge on his own for Brock, I don't think anyone believes that. But with the rest of the family there, I mean, Bray's a smart guy. I love the idea of Bray and Brock simply because I think the Bray and Paul Heyman promos will be, out of this world. So I'm into it. And if they pull it through and they do it properly, I think it could be a great program, an ongoing program. But I'd like to see Brock fight his way up to Bray by going through the rest of them.
And it was pretty damn cool at the Rumble to see Brock throwing around all those giants.
Mm-hmm.
That was something else. I mean, the part with Braun Strowman, I did feel bad for poor Braun. But I mean, that was pretty sweet. And when you put it to me that way, Paul, Bray on the promos, Brock running wild, throwing around all these big, huge hillbillies. That's a good program. I like that. I really do like that. And if only Brock would work a TV match against Luke Harper. That's all I want.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that match. Give me that match.
Yeah,
please. Okay. Let's do something with Luke Harper in 2016. Something more.
Isn't there talk of them fighting at one of the live network specials?
You're kidding.
No, I thought I read that.
Is that who he's fighting in Toronto?
That was who he's going to fight, yeah.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
I don't know. I read that, but I don't know if it was confirmed.
Okay, well, listeners, let me know. Write in or do whatever you got to do to get at us. Hit us up at the Warzone 08 on Twitter. That's great. I didn't know that actually was something. I was just saying that off the top of my head. I think Harper is awesome. He's the best guy in that group, clearly in the ring, and no question about it. And he has such a good look. They need to do more with Luke Harper. Why is he not getting the Braun Strowman? I guess because he's not as freakish. So yeah, I really don't have a problem with it, and I think you really did just sell me on your pitch there. That's something you could probably go past Mania too, I think. You could do the WrestleMania revenge with Brock still feuding with the Wyatts.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, week to week, Brock doesn't need to be there week to week to carry this feud on because Paul can carry it with his mouth. And also the whole threat that something's going to happen to Paul. I think that would be really fun to watch.
Right. Now, Shotgun Shan, the Grammy Award winning host of the year for 2015. I do believe that my Grammy Award for Match of the Year 2016 will definitely go to Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. It hasn't happened yet, but it's my pick for Match of the Year. What do you think?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, you put those two styles together. Sami's a fantastic guy for Nakamura to fight coming in. Perfect guy. Because, he's so adaptable, so exciting on his own. And I think he can really complement what Nakamura brings in. While, have they worked together before?
I would say yes, but I don't know for sure, and I might have to do a little bit of a YouTube search after the show and see if I can find anything with them both in the ring. But they've both been around, and I mean, Generico spent a lot of time also in Japan as well. So I mean, I just feel like at some point these guys must have been hooked up on some kind of show. Maybe there wasn't a camera there to record it, but I'm hoping that there was. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be nuts. That crowd is gonna be so nuts for that match. And what a great place to debut Nakamura. I know that, though, I mean, it's not the feeling of a lot of people. A lot of people a little bit upset that he is debuting on NXT. But what do you think about the idea of his first match being in NXT?
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't think there's any need to complain about this. This is a long-term plan they have for Nakamura. You bring him in, help him to adapt. He's got some great guys to work with there that will help to bring him, up to what we need for the WWE North American standards. And at the same time, really introduce him to a rabid audience that's going to carry over. There's a lot of little side projects that go on that involve NXT too. You've got the Breaking Ground. I'm hoping that's coming back. And,
could you imagine Shinsuke on Breaking Ground?
Yeah.
Oh, this would be so good.
Well, that's what I mean. That show to me, more than just about anything they've put out of their own specialty program, I thought provided a service that they have never been able to tap into before, which is taking guys that are at the bottom of the roster, like at the NXT roster, not even up on the main roster yet, and packaging them as absolute stars, compelling, not just in the ring and not just, with a nice glossy coat of paint on them, but as people, really making you interested in them. I think in the long run, shows like that are going to be invaluable for them, and putting Nakamura in there, I think would be a fantastic idea. I don't know if it'll coincide with what they're doing with him and how long they plan to keep him in NXT. But I think it's a great idea.
Well, as we record this show, it's now been probably about 2 days or so since Nakamura landed in JFK Airport. He is now in North America, folks. He was picked up at the airport by Sho Funaki. And the man is now here. He is in NXT, and he is beginning his training. There was a bit of news that came out regarding this. Do you want to give people the latest update regarding what you know about Nakamura, his WWE entrance theme, his name? What do you know, Shan?
I know that there's going to be a new entrance theme. There's been talk about them trying to get the original, but what I read today said that they are going to give him some original music. But they are now, from what I understand, at least the news that was released today, going to have him go by the name Nakamura, which is fine by me. I think his first name might have been difficult for people to pronounce. And I think it still keeps his identity. I mean, I hope that they keep as much. I mean, his whole character is so perfect. I really hope they keep as much of that identity as they can. But it will be very, very exciting to see him come in. We know he's debuting in NXT. How long he'll be there, we don't know. But I think that the possibilities and certainly the amount of care and the amount of reverence they seem to be giving him is a good indication that they have some big plans for Nakamura.
Definitely. Now, did you see the farewell of Nakamura from New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I did. That was pretty emotional.
Can you even imagine a scenario like that playing out in North America?
No.
Can you imagine the WWE doing that in the Monday Night Wars?
No.
Bret Hart's leaving. Let's give him 15 minutes after his final match, and we'll just do this big heroes send-off for him. We'll just have him, have all his buddies come in and everyone can hug him, and we'll just air the whole thing, and then we'll go back to the back and we'll give him a press conference and we'll just let him speak his mind. It's just absolutely unfathomable the amount of class that they handled this whole situation with. Biggest show of the year, Wrestle Kingdom 10. That was when they gave their notice to Gato. And New Japan Pro Wrestling in terms of him and AJ and the Bullet Club, who were still there until they're gone now. Sorry, January 31st is over. Those guys could be here anytime. So their contracts have expired, but it's just it just blows my mind to see that, to see the amount of respect that they gave him, WWE is making moves in Japan or trying to, and that's another thing that sort of about your point regarding his identity. You don't want to necessarily completely strip his identity if you're using him sort of as the flagship of selling this WWE network in Japan.
Exactly.
He's a rock star in Japan. He is a rock star in Japan. So you do not want to completely strip that away. You want to use that. I understand why they don't like people using their names. I understand they want to be able to own it. But the name Nakamura, that's a badass name. That is a badass one-word name. And you can still market him to the Japanese fans that you're trying to sell this network to. They like going to Japan. They want to do more business in Japan. And Japan is the one place where they're not number one. So, of course, that should be a target for them. So, anyway, I'm cool with everything going on right now. But again, the way New Japan handled it, Okada, I just love that kid. I really do. He's just, everything you hear about Okada, everything you see about Okada, he's just a good kid. And he really was very emotional during that Shinsuke. Shinsuke was very much a mentor to him. Okada's really only been on top less than 5 years. He's really still quite new to being a top guy. So there was a lot of mentoring that went on there. Yoshihashi, both you and I, and pretty much everybody listening to this, nobody thinks anything about Yoshihashi. Nobody cares about Yoshihashi. But Nakamura does. And Yoshihashi was a guy that Nakamura thought was fun to be around. So that was awesome. And again, just another quick little check-in from Japan. They've done some really interesting things just over the last little while since Wrestle Kingdom. One being the fact that Yohei Komatsu and Sho Tanaka have now graduated as young boys, and they were given their send-off on the final night of Fantastica Mania. So now they're going on excursion. So all the best to those two gentlemen. A lot of talent there. graduated as young lions, and now it's time to move on. I haven't really heard where they're going. Probably Mexico, probably CMLL for now. Another partner of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'd love to see them sent down to Ring of Honor for a while. I think they'd really fit in well there and get a lot of experience there. But all the best to them. Goto has really been a big story lately for me because he was a guy that has always been kind of overlooked. He's always been the other guy in the match with the great guy. He's always been the good guy, but not the great guy. And they've given him a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances with belts and all these different things. Never quite really clicked. So here we go. Nakamura's gone. AJ's gone. Big hole in that main event scene. So they book him in a match because he did get that win over Okada in the G1. So they book him in the match with Okada for New Beginning coming up later this month. And pretty much across the board, everyone's just kind of like, this is going to be a real come down now. Okada and Goto in the main event of New Beginning. No, because they've done the most amazing thing with Goto ever. He's started dressing all in black. The end of Fantastica Mania, which is pretty much like a feel-good show. It's a cheerleading show. It's yay lucha. And because New Japan doesn't do a lot of angles, it really stands out when they do. Goto shows up in the ring wearing all black, beats up the luchadors, beats up the young boys, beats up the referee, beats up Okada. This has kind of been the whole jumping off point now for Goto as this real badass heel. It's not like the Naito heel turn with all this showbiz and charisma. Goto doesn't care about entertaining you, Shan. Goto wears all black, and he's coming in to beat some ass, and if you don't like it, he doesn't care. It's really been quite the transformation for Goto. They had a press conference there with Okada after Fantastica Mania 2, and out of nowhere, and they never do this in the press conference, all the reporters are there, and Okada's being all charming, making them laugh. Goto appears in a leather jacket, knocks him off his chair. You can't really see what he's doing because the table's in the way, but it looks like he's just kicking Okada in the face over and over. It's like that street fight where the guy goes way too far. So they're doing something with Goto, and it's working, and the crowd is booing. And Kenny Omega, of course, is now going to be facing Hiroshi Tanahashi for the vacant IWGP IC title. Kenny Omega got these new tights, Shan. You thought he was obnoxious before.
Oh, no.
You thought he was annoying before. You remember those candies? There'd always be that dish of candies at, say, our grandmother's house. Usually old British people. And they'd all be clumped together. And there's no way number one, there's no way you could pick one out of the pile. But there's also no way you could put one in your mouth and do anything with it. Like, it would break every single tooth and get caught, under your gums. It was just awful. So you remember those candies, and they had all the weird designs on them, and they'd have all the colors and a real tacky look, and didn't even look like food.
Yeah.
That's like Kenny's tights.
Oh my God. So you have the worst hair ever, and you combine it with
worst tights.
Oh my God.
So a risky move, but maybe Kenny can pull it off.
If anyone can pull it off, it's Kenny. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt him if they're horrible. I mean,
no.
It'll work in his favor. The worse they are.
Right, and the Bullet Club really seems to be dissolving. It's like a few of the guys are still wearing the gear, but pretty much nobody else is. Like, they're starting to have this thing on the back of their tights that says The Elite, which is probably the most generic faction name ever.
Does this mean that they may be selling off the Bullet Club name? I know that the WWE wanted that trademark.
Did you see on Raw this week with the New Day? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they called attention to a kid and his father, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they were both wearing Bullet Club shirts, and the camera stayed on them for a very long time. And I just thought, this is so not WWE to let this go or to not catch this. And let's face it, the Bullet Club is a lot bigger in terms of marketability than the Balor Club will be.
Exactly.
A knockoff.
Bullet Club is sort of what DX was back in, that day when people would wear the Bullet Club or wear the DX shirts, even when they weren't huge fans, just because it was a cool shirt. And I have a
cool shirt. It is the cool shirt of today's generation. You're right.
Yeah.
So you got a whole bunch of people in your audience already wearing it,
Yeah.
But it's a matter of, that's a New Japan trademark. That's not something those guys own. They would have to go through New Japan, so we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, New Beginning with that main event. I'm damn excited about it now. I think it's going to be hot. And Kenny versus Tanahashi. I know people are thinking, I think Luke has this wrong. Tanahashi has a separated shoulder. He's out.
That's what I thought.
Tanahashi's not out.
Wow.
But he does have a separated shoulder.
Jesus.
So there we go. That's all I can tell you right now regarding that. That injury was very real. Maybe it's not as bad as they thought, but The Japanese, they have a different mentality when it comes to the injuries. I mean, look at Ishii working for 2 years with that shoulder all taped up. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried. He's so valuable to that company, especially right now. But I'm happy to see them making moves. You know, they're not just sitting around right now. They're starting to make some moves. They're acquiring some new juniors. You know, they've just acquired Will Ospreay from the UK, who is somewhat like a Ricochet in terms of his spectacular high flying, but it's also combined with that Wigan British style, and it's also combined with that sort of new school PWG indie style. So Will Ospreay, a fantastic talent who was signed with New Japan, will be debuting coming up soon, I believe, at Invasion Attack, and then he will be in the Best of the Super Juniors. So you've got things you can do. Back in the glory days of New Japan, their most profitable time ever was in the mid-90s, and it was the IWGP World Champion, and it was the IWGP Junior Champion. They were like neck and neck. You had the Ligers, you had the Sasukes. I think it's time. You have the talent. Let's make the juniors a bigger focus in this company. It's been another really fun episode of Vintage Update. We got Place to Go. I've got Lucha Underground to watch.
There is one bit of news that we didn't cover today, and I don't even know if you're even aware of it, but there's reports going out that WWE Network is looking to put on a 10-episode tournament using lighter weight wrestlers.
What?
Yeah, sort of like, and referring to it as a Japanese-style tournament with the idea that they're going to get the lighter guys less than 205 pounds in a big Japanese-style tournament, and they're going to use it as a way to launch La Sombra and have a big debut come out of that. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. There's only just been speculation, but they're talking about it here. If they were to adopt something like that, what a fantastic idea. Like, I mean, anybody on that show would be over so much more just by having appeared in this tournament and especially a 10 episode. So it's not like they're going to rush it through.
Holy Eureka moment. Wait a second. Ricochet did put out some tweets, some cryptic tweets a few days ago, and it really seemed to be hinting that he was leaving Lucha Underground, and some people were starting to speculate that he may be on the WWE radar again. So I'm not trying to put things out there. I guess I sort of am. I'm not saying anything is confirmed. I'm not saying that this, I know any more than what has been speculated. But the fact that that sort of was being talked about earlier in the week, and now you're telling me that they're doing a lightweight tournament. How many episodes?
10.
10. Wow.
So I mean, it really could be round robin and not just single elimination.
And you're not taking those guys out of your developmental. You're going to have to be acquiring these guys. I mean, La Sombra, yes.
Yeah, they said basically unknown or underexposed wrestlers.
Oh my God! So Ricochet, I think, is coming in. Holy crap! That's the way it sounds to me. I was really hoping to see the Will Ospreay Ricochet match. Maybe we won't be seeing it, but again, this is all speculation right now. Anything else you want to say before we take off, my man?
That's it, buddy. I think we've covered everything. I mean, I'm going to be kind of sitting and waiting to see how things play out as we move towards WrestleMania. Right now, I'm it's a combination of being a bit bewildered and a bit, underwhelmed, but let's see what we end up with our main event after Fastlane.
All right. So from myself, from the man himself, Shotgun Shan, the shooter, he shoots love, not hate, not war, but peace, love, and Wrestling Audio Revolution, Shotgun Shan, the Grammy Award-winning host of the year for 2015.
Promotional consideration is paid for by the following.